Hey guys, and welcome to Ask Me Anything, the community AMA series brought to you by the VC firm ICONPLUS Capital. I'm Layah Heilpern. Joining me today is Logan Saether, the founder of Zeitgeist, the first decentralized prediction market hub and ecosystem on the Kusama and Polkadot networks. We received a lot of amazing questions from the community, but to say thank you, we are giving away $150 in DOT to 3 of the best questions. So those winners will be announced at the end of the show, so make sure you keep watching. Logan, great to speak to you again. How are you doing?
Hey, good. Thanks to be back. It's good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited for this AMA because so much has happened since we last spoke. Of course, major congrats on securing the 17th parachain slot. So tell us, what does this mean for you guys now that you've secured this slot?
Yeah, thank you. So we're super excited to have won this parachain slot. So I think the most exciting thing through the whole process was just that we saw the strength of the community come out. Um, so the parachain slot auctions haven't been super competitive for the last few weeks,
Mm.
and it was great to see that even though we launched our auction just a few days, or our crowd loan just a few days before the auction, we still raised a significant amount more than any other team that participated in that auction. So it was good to see that the community came out and showed its support for us, even though the auctions haven't been super competitive lately.
Yeah, absolutely. What does this mean for Q1 then of next year?
Yeah, so for Q1, so we'll deploy Geist, our network in Q1. So we've won the auction now, but the actual onboarding date isn't until January 9th. So it's good for us. It means we can do some preparations over the next few weeks. It's also holidays, so we'll have some time to enjoy the holidays with family and friends. But what this means for Q1 and our route is that, so first we'll start on January 9th or about that date, maybe it's January 10th, by deploying a minimal feature set of Zeitgeist onto the Kusama relay chain. So this is primarily to just make sure everything up until now has been done right. That when we launch the chain, it'll produce blocks. That we've
Mhm.
set up our boot nodes, our collator nodes, our RPC nodes sufficiently to support growing the network. And then over the next few weeks, gradually open up more features, working toward the token launch. So the TTE, the token transferability event, which will come a few weeks later, as well as transitioning the network from being centrally controlled, so being controlled by us at the beginning while we're rolling out these new features, to being controlled by the community at the end of this rollout process.
So let's jump into the AMA because the community asked a lot of questions, some really exciting ones actually. So our first question is from Ken Lyserson. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. So Ken is basically saying that there are so many classes of prediction. So how is Zeitgeist going to help prediction markets? How are you going to improve, and how are you going to essentially just specialize with the different areas of prediction markets?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I think the main difference between some other classes of prediction, as I think Ken pointed out, statistical, opinion, and behavioral based, and prediction markets, is that prediction markets actually provide incentive for people with knowledge. So people who are either experts on the subject, people who might, be actually directly involved with um, whatever the subject of the market is, or people just have, for whatever reason, specialized knowledge. For them to bring that knowledge and co- contribute that to the public crowdsourced knowledge. So I think that's one difference between prediction markets and these other prediction um, analysis. So what I think we'll see with Zeitgeist then, as far as how we bring those people in and how we grow with those people, is that um, is that we have this permissionless ability for anyone to just come, and if they're providing good knowledge and if they're right, they'll actually be making money on that. So they'll be getting paid. So I think what we'll see is that instead of sourcing um, us sourcing like subject matter experts by
Mm-hmm.
going out there and finding like top academics or people involved with the matter, we'll see an emergent nature where these people will uh, come to the network and start contributing knowledge. And I think the other aspect of that is that people who might not be considered subject matter experts, but have, for whatever reason, specialized knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
will be able to build a reputation of being a subject matter expert now, in a way where they don't even need to say who they are. So they can build up a pseudonymous identity, and a track record of contributing to different markets, being right about which markets they're right about, and
Mm-hmm.
whether they're right consistently, and creating an identity based on that.
Right. Another really interesting question actually came from Lee D. This one is quite a topical one. So, DAOs are obviously quite big right now. So, how do you expect to integrate the DAO with prediction market economy in a safe and regulated way?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So I think there's two sides of that question, or at least I interpret two sides of that question. So one way is, how do we integrate DAOs with prediction markets in a safe way, which I interpret as more of like a technical problem. How do we do it so that DAOs can safely use prediction markets? So for this, we have, um, again, a staged rollout plan for how we're going to roll out prediction market based governance for
Mm-hmm.
DAOs. This is what's called Futaki. So we're going to start with doing it for our own network, doing it for Zeitgeist. So Zeitgeist, as a parachain in the Kusama ecosystem, has sovereignty over how it upgrades, how the code will change. So it has governance. So it operates as a DAO essentially. So we'll be running Zeitgeist, dog fooding our own prediction markets as as a governance system, as what we think is the first layer one chain to use Futarchy to govern itself. So once we do that, and the goal is to kind of prove it out as something that's viable, something that works, something that's ideally better than what we have now. And once we do that, we'll look to expand to first the Polkadot ecosystem. So other parachains that have connected to Kusama, and then once we have the Polkadot Kusama bridge to Polkadot as well, they can use the same exact feature set that we're using on Zeitgeist through uh, you know, the Polkadot interoperability, XCMP. So any parachain that wants to follow Zeitgeist's lead in this aspect, we can integrate with them natively through XCMP. And then after that, we would look for a DAO solution in the Kusama ecosystem for these looser, smaller organizations that tend to pop up around DAOs. Whether that is another project in the ecosystem that does that, and we can integrate with them natively, or whether we end up building that solution ourselves on Zeitgeist. It's still yet to be seen, but we'll essentially we'll offer the same tools to smaller organizations as well. And then the other side of that question is, how do we do that in a regulated way? And that, I think, is the um, a bit more complex, at least for us, because we're working with uh, a lot more parties there,
Mm.
namely governments. So it is something we have given thought to, though. We've mostly been thinking in the context of the United States. So I know there's regulation around the world, but a lot of our work up until now and going into the future will probably be focused on the United States because we feel if we solve the problem there, we can apply some of the same practices to other parts of the world. But the good news about that is that there have been um, more and more options in the United States for how we can do this in a regulated way. There's not perfect regulation yet, I would say, across the United States as a whole, but there are certain states, such as Wyoming, with the work they've been doing on the legal definition of DAOs,
Hmm.
um, that we can leverage that in that state. And on the other side of that, with prediction markets and our application, there's been more and more states, excuse me, that have been um, opening up in the last couple years to gaming licenses. So prediction markets, the application kind of a lot of times will get will fall under this classification,
Hmm. Hmm.
regulatory classification of kind of a gaming application. So it's actually good news for us that quite a number of states in the last 2 or 3 years have actually opened up with licenses that we could go and apply for and then operate the application in a regulated way in that state.
So I want to pick up on the point that you were speaking about when you first started answering the question about Futaki, because a question came from CU essentially asking how will Futaki be utilized in the Zeitgeist app when it goes live?
Yeah. So Futarchy, we probably won't have Futarchy right away because we have this
Okay.
staged rollout process. So we'll start with um, probably the same governance um, functionality that Polkadot and Kusama uses. So essentially token holder voting. And that'll be for the kind of first chunk of time of Zeitgeist, probably Q1, maybe going to Q2. And then around there is when we're looking to add on the Futarchy aspect of that. So the reason why we're not starting with that right away is because it's um, still a very nascent uh, governance feature, and
Hmm.
we just want to be a bit more conservative about rolling that out. But we are going to roll it out as quick as possible. So once we're sure that prediction markets are working fine on Zeitgeist, we'll start um, we'll start running prediction markets alongside token holder voting. So not only will people vote on the proposals that they support, but they'll also be able to participate in a market where they can, actually stake value behind what they what they believe will happen. And
Mm.
this is, this is I think a notable difference between the two because a lot of times what you want, what you vote for, can be different from what you actually think will happen. So while people um, vote their values using token holder voting, they'll actually stake their tokens by participating in a market about what they actually believe will happen, right? So
Mm.
those two things can and oftentimes are different.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying those differences. I do want to move on to talk about the Zeitgeist Seer program. So, a question came through from Cadeline asking, I read in Zeitgeist Seer program, everyone will have a title based on their contribution to the Zeitgeist ecosystem. So, what are the advantages of having a title?
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know what the Zeitgeist Seer program is, it's our version of an ambassador program. Now it's a
Mm-hmm.
bit more than just an ambassador program. We're structuring it to have a a number of different workflows where when someone enters into the SEER program, we kind of find out what they are interested in, what they want to work on, what their skill set is, and then they enter into one of these workflows where they can use their skills and their interests in a way that contributes to Zeitgeist in a beneficial way. So through that process, they get rewarded titles, and the title is a way to kind of distinguish the fact that they have contributed to Zeitgeist in some way, right? So we have a title that shows that you contributed through a design aspect, right? I forget exactly what the different roles are called, but there's one for like design. There's another one for like technical contributions. There's some for communities. So it's a way to kind of um, provide tracks for different types of skill set. Um, there's uh, there's NFTs associated with some of the titles.
Hmm.
There's other benefits as well. So whether that's access to the team, once you obtain a certain title, access to certain meetings once you obtain a title, uh, access to new programs that we have, specifically around bounties.
Hmm.
So when we have a bounty that we want to put to the community, a lot of times we'll put it to the SARE program first. And if there's a specific group within the SARE program, they'll oftentimes be able to see that opportunity first.
Okay, so we're moving on to our final AMA question. So this comes from Moonboy Guyan. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. So he says, after the Zeitgeist beta was announced, you announced that you would give users the opportunity to create their very own prediction marketplace. So what will users be able to do when they join these markets, or when it comes to using the token ZTG?
Yeah, so in the beta, we did let people create their own markets already. So that's already something people were doing in the beta, um, at least through using our application for it. So yeah, that'll launch. That'll launch once we launch the app on mainnet on Zeitgeist proper on your chain. And you can do that through placing a bond using the ZTG token, our native token. And the bond's there for kind of economic security, that you're not creating a spam market. You're not creating some kind of what someone might consider a market with some kind of evil intent behind it, because that bond can get slashed if you're found to be misbehaving with this market. So that'll be available for sure. Um, the other side of that is like builders or entrepreneurs building their own market, like separate application on Zeitgeist, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that can get started. People can get started on doing now as well. We've been talking to people about that. We have an SDK. It's open source. The chain is permissionless. There's no really requirement for getting started on that. You can come talk to us if you're interested in that. It, any market does require a ZTG bond, so you'll need to use ZTG for creating markets and transacting the markets. But there's also there's also the possibility of, if you're a team building on Zeitgeist, we can supply a ZTG token to you to essentially get you started on doing that.
So we've come to the end of our AMA. Logan, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with your community?
Yeah, just a big thank you to the community. I think the community is like one of the my favorite aspects of Zeitgeist, and just seeing how everyone's interested in this novel governance aspect and using prediction markets for things that I didn't even think of. So it's always great to see new ideas come from the community. Um, Thanks to everyone who contributed to the crowd loan, and looking forward to continuing to build Zeitgeist with everyone next year and into the future.
Absolutely. The community really is one of the most important parts of crypto and building different projects. So I think it's really great to see the community come together. Obviously, there is the $150 in dot giveaway. So I'm just going to announce the winners. So the first winner is Ken Lyserson, so I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The next one is CU, and the next winner is Lee D. So guys, don't forget to message ICONPLUS Capital on Twitter so that you can claim your rewards. Logan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yep, thank you.
Guys, don't forget, if you want to find out more information about Zeitgeist, then just head to their website, zeitgeist.pm, or just follow them on Twitter.